Okay. Welcome to this edition of the Internet Law Centre podcast. This week we'll be talking about sharenting. I'm Lindsay Goldrick-Dean.
I'm Yair Cohen.
Hello, Yair.
Hey Lindsay, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Do you think that parents sharing online of children's images, known as sharenting, that there will be a kickback in the future?
Wow, what a question. I think that it is quite possible that there is already a consequence for parents sharing in such huge volume images and private information about the children. We know that in France, about a year and a half ago, the government had issued a warning to parents telling them they need to be aware that they could possibly be sued by their own children for breaching the child's privacy. That followed with another statement a few weeks later that was issued by the French police, warning parents again of some of the consequences of sharing children's images and private information on the internet.
Okay, so if a case went to the court in the UK, how successful do you think that would be in a child taking action?
I think that there are two different situations. The first one, he said that the child is no longer a child; he's now a teenager or perhaps an adult, and has a complaint that her parents had breached the right to privacy by posting some very private information and images on the internet. It will then be, I believe, for the parents to come to court and effectively prove that the sharing of that information was done in the best interest of the child. And I think some parents will find it really, really difficult to prove that they posted for many, many years. They've been posting images of the children, and that was in the best interest of the child.
Yes, because what about the mummy and daddy bloggers that are posting their children's images to tens of thousands of people and that are profiting from it?
Well,
Do you think
yes.
do you think at some point there could be a change in the law to protect children from exploitation?
It is interesting that you use the word exploitation because some people do see it as exploitation, but the parents might not necessarily see
Mm-hmm.
this in the same way. I mean, you can compare this situation to, for example, a pushy parent who want their child to be an actor or to be famous for something, and they keep pushing them to go and do I don't know adverts on television or whatever. The parent quite often will say, I know I'm being pushy here, but it is actually in the best interest of, I believe that what I'm doing is in the best interest of my extremely talented daughter. First, to allow my daughter to exercise and utilize her incredible talent. And second, perhaps to secure her future. She's going to be earning money from all those adverts. They're going to be putting money to one side. So this is one situation. Now, when say a dad blogs about his daughter for many, many years and keep posting images, and we've been here and she's been there and she's done this, she's done that, a lot of private information. I mean, possibly the dad wouldn't see that as exploitation, because when we say exploitation, there is an implication that something is being done to harm that person, to take advantage of. It might not be done deliberately, but the child could certainly feel that they had been exploited.
So who owns the right to an image then? Would it be the parents or the child?
Well, it depends who you ask. There's something that we lawyers call intellectual property rights, which means a right. These are rights that are not tangible. You cannot touch them, but they are still legal rights. Copyright, for example, trademark. Those are all intellectual property rights. Traditionally, the law says that if a photographer took a picture of your that the copyright for the picture belongs to the photographer, because the photographer used their own or his own talent and equipment and professionalism and created that image. Now, what the European court said a few years ago, which by the way, it's not been repeated since then, but what they said was that every person has a right to their own image. So I have a right to the image of my nose, my hair, my eyes. They belong to me. They are unique to my characteristics, and therefore, by default, I own some rights to the image. So if my image appears in a photograph, yes, the photographer may still own the copyright, but there is still another intellectual property right, which is called a right to one's own image, which could possibly even override the right of the photographer. Or I mean, the photographer could be the parent, for example.
So is it a human rights issue then? Yeah, yeah.
Uh, well, there are two issues with parents, say, posting images and private information about the children onto the internet, particularly Facebook and other social media. The first, of course, is a legal issue. It's the information is private information very, very often, and it is very rare that we as parents seek our child's permission before we put something onto
Mm.
Facebook. So there are clearly questions of privacy, breach of privacy. Of course, the parent it is responsible for the child's well-being. So while the child is still a minor, we could say that it is for the parents to decide for the child whether or to give consent on behalf of the child for things to be posted. But this decision need to be reasonable and always need to be in the child's best interest.
Mm.
The other side of this is not necessarily a legal issue, but what we are seeing recently is more and more teenagers feeling anxiety, frustration. Um, Lindsay, but teenagers by default, they have all sorts of things that are happening to them as the brain grows and
Yeah.
the hormones are going all funny. And it is not unusual for a teenager to feel a little bit low about their own self-esteem and
Hmm.
their own self-image, and to see themselves uglier, say, than what than what they actually are. I think that what we are seeing now is children whose self-esteem has been shattered anyway, just by the virtue of being teenagers. They feel extremely bad about themselves, seeing all those photographs when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 7, when I was 8, thinking, oh,
Absolutely.
they just don't like, many of them just don't like themselves, and that results in developing a sense of anger
Hmm.
and frustration, and also a mistrust, because
Yes.
mom, you were meant to protect me.
Yes.
Why did you put all those pictures of me out there?
Yes.
Do you see I've got a scar? You know
Yes.
that I'm not happy with my nose? I hate my hair.
Yes.
I'm fat. And you just went there and put all these images of me since I was like, a baby out there, and I hate myself, and I feel embarrassed, and people are laughing at me, and you let me down.
Yeah.
And I think this is the real danger here, is that um, possible feeling of the child, maybe no longer a child, maybe now a young adult, they've been laid down by the parents who without really thinking about it too much, just posted loads and loads of private information about them to the world.
Oh, so presumably pictures taken today and showed today could very well potentially be the basis of court action.
Certainly, I think if there was a court action taken by a child, if a child is younger than is a minor, the child can still go to court and say, I would like the court now to take over from my parents, looking after my best interest, because I don't believe that my parents are acting in my best interest. They've been without any real justification. They are invading my privacy and posting images and private information about me on the internet. It will be then for the parents to go to court and say, hey, we actually. I mean, it's very difficult to see how the parents can prove that the posting of children's images on Facebook was in the child's best interest. The other scenario is that the child is no longer a child, is now a young adult or an adult, and they go to court, and then the parents perhaps are invited to defend a claim for breach of privacy. It's never been, it has never happened before, but I think it is very likely to happen at one point.
Right. So presumably there could be changes in the law at some point in the future.
Sorry.
Once these potential cases come about, because with Facebook appearing in 2005, we've got 15-year-olds feeling this now, haven't we? We've got it's now and going forward that we're going to see and hear more cases where children feel their parents have let them down by posting private images.
Yes, of course. It is a very difficult issue, and I think that it is one more issue which relates to internet and internet law that is yet to be clarified, and it is only a matter of time before someone probably comes to us or another lawyer and says, look, I've got an issue with all those, with breach of privacy by my parents. Can you help me with that? So we will tell them possibly that we don't know what the court will decide, but there are obviously some arguments in favor of the parents being found liable for breaching the child's a right to privacy. But it's not really, again, about suing someone for damages. Usually when you take people to court is because you want them to pay to compensate you.
Yes.
I think it is about the possible breakdown in relationship between the parents who are there and are meant to protect the child, and the child feeling that they've been laid down by the very people who were supposed to protect them,
Yes. And do you think parents are just not thinking, it's like, do you think something that like Instagram introduced the warning sign? Are you sure you want to post this? Do you think it would work? Are you sure everyone in this image wants you to post this image? Do you think anything like that would work?
I certainly think that social media companies need to do more, and they can do more. The question is, do they want to do more? Do they actually care?
Yes.
But I think, Lindsay, that we run out of time.
Oh yeah.
Yes. But it is certainly a very, very interesting topic, I think, and something that perhaps we want to come back.
We could talk about so many things, about how to get them removed. There's so many areas to this. We'll be talking well into,
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lindsay, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Yair. It's been lovely.
It's been lovely, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.